is cloud computing. Then we're going to talk about Microsoft Azure fundamentals. So why do we need cloud? What do we do with cloud computing, and how do we host our services over there? So we're going to talk about all these things in detail, and stay with us for long, and inshallah you will get the fundamentals of cloud computing. So the certification will look like this. As you can see my screen, this is a certificate that you will get at the end of every workshop. And if somebody already know about cloud computing, he may leave because it is the fundamentals. We're going to talk about fundamentals. And the workshop which we are going to host day after tomorrow, we are going to deeper into the code and rest of the things. Today we're not going to do anything practical. We're going to talk about theory. So what this certification is about? So Azure Fundamentals is about as you can see the badge on my screen. When you're done with the fundamentals, you will get this badge. So basically, this is a certification. It costs some money, but if you know already about all the services and all the things that are underlying in your like if you know the basics, you can get a job for that. You don't need a certificate to show the company that I'm a credible person, you can trust me. So certification is not the key, but you must have the basic concepts of what's going inside in cloud computing. So why do we do this certifications, or why do we learn these things? Why do we need to know about fundamentals? So fundamentals are basically for sales and managers, and these are things for developers. So let's say I'm an Amazon developer. I work on AWS. I work on any other cloud platform, but I want to shift towards Azure cloud computing. So I would dig deeper into fundamentals of Azure. So the general idea is the same, but the fundamentals are a little bit different. So what is cloud computing? Let me present my screen. Cloud is a computer that can fly? Definitely not. So in cloud computing, we have remote servers. We do not have any physical machine. We have remote machine. We can host our services. We can get the services. We can host our applications. We can deploy our applications on the servers. In the remote past, we used to have physical servers for everything. Like I run Relief Me application. So for that thing, I need to host that application on any server. For that, I need to go. In the past, I used to go. We used to go and buy a server for that thing, for that single application, and we used to host our application on that cloud. On that server. So it was used to be called dedicated server. So in that dedicated server, we have one physical machine and we have one business idea that is being running on that machine. So it's the hosting provider that provides you that physical machine. Basically, the pros and cons include it was very expensive, it required high maintenance, and it required high security, because you have to customize every single thing from scratch in dedicated servers. So let's talk about virtual private server. In virtual private server, you have one physical machine dedicated to a single business, but in that physical machine, you can have multiple virtual sub machines, and can host your multiple web applications on those virtual sub machines. So it's like one physical big giant server or big giant machines, and you have multiple sub machines or virtual machines on which you can run multiple services or multiple businesses. So like I have Core i7. I'm giving a layman example. Like I have Core i7, and I'm the owner of Amazon. I'm the owner of Facebook. I'm the owner of different multi-tech companies. So I'm hosting all those applications on single physical machine, but I have multiple virtual machines. So Facebook is running on one virtual machine, Amazon is running on another virtual machine. So that is the whole underlying concept. Now, what is shared hosting? In shared hosting, we have again one physical machine, but it is shared by the hundred of businesses. So again, it is like virtual private server, but it is more likely the combination of dedicated and virtual private server. In one physical machine, you can run multiple businesses, you can run multiple applications, and it is relatively cheap, but it is limited. You cannot customize it that much as you can customize private servers or dedicated servers. And now here comes cloud computing. Cloud computing consists of multiple physical machines and multiple hard drives. Everything is in huge quantity. So let's say you need 10 physical machines or 10 computing resources, because you are running a huge tech company and you or e-commerce company, you need huge resources. So you don't need to buy any physical machine. You will just go to any cloud providing server, any cloud provider, and you will ask for the number of. You will tell them that this is my usability of application, and I require that much server, and he's going to provide you the compute engines, and you can run your single application in those compute engines. So that's the whole idea about cloud computing. So you can have multiple physical machines, but those physical machines are virtual. You cannot interact with them physically. You cannot touch them physically. They exist in the cloud. That's why we call them cloud computing. We cannot see them physically. All right. So what are the common cloud services? Common cloud providers. Common cloud services are compute engines, networking, storage, and databases. So normally, like I'm a developer, I'm a software developer, I'm an AI engineer, and I mostly use databases and compute engines for running my application on cloud. Networking comes, when you have very high secure application, when you're saving very confidential data, then you need networking for your compute engine, because you want to modify the underlying firewall configuration so that no other user can interact with your application other than you specify. Like only the people of India can interact with this application. Not any other people can interact with this application. So only Indians will be able to interact with that application. So that will be region-wise hosting. So that come under networking. You have to handle all these things. And databases, in databases you have virtual databases. Like you do not need to go and purchase lots of hard drive for your physical machine because you want to save your customer data. You will just go to Azure and you will ask for the databases that you need, 1 terabyte, 2 terabyte, or 16 terabyte, or hundred of tons of terabytes space for storing your customer record. So it's another services. It's another services provided by cloud, including Azure, AWS, and different providers. Another storage. What is this difference between storage and databases? Storage includes, like, Facebook stores your profile pictures. So for storing profile pictures, videos, like these kind of stuff, it requires a storage. But for storing your tabular data, what is tabular data? Like my name, my class, my gender, my age, my height. So this kind of data is known as tabular data. So this type of data is stored in databases. But pictures and images and videos, these type of data is stored in storage. So again, you do not need to buy a lot of hard drive for these kind of things. You will just purchase from any cloud provider. And compute engine is basically a virtual machine, a machine on which you are running your services. Like I'm doing this webinar on my laptop, which is Core i5. So that's a compute engine for me. So I can have multiple compute engines, multiple laptops on cloud, and I can run single applications in multiple laptops. So that's I'm trying to explain everything in a layman terminology. Let's move ahead. So here comes Azure. So Microsoft provide their cloud service. They call it Azure. So Azure literally means bright blue color of the cloudless sky. Just a funny little bit, but they usually call it in this way. Okay, why do we use cloud computing and what are the benefits? Because it's in the cloud, definitely. We use it because it's in the cloud, it's virtual. We do not need any physical compute engine. All right, so basically the main advantage of cloud computing is its cost effectiveness. In the remote past, people used to have, if I'm going to run a business, if I'm going to start a business, or if I'm going to start a startup, I'm going to think first of all, I'm going to think about what are the compute resources that I require for running my service. Like I want to run social media web app that is going to have million of users in the future. So for that, I need huge resources. So when I'm going to buy those huge resources, like I need GPUs, lots of things, and it is going to cost me too much money. But with the arrival of cloud computing, I do not need to buy those kind of stuff. I just need to go to any cloud service provider, and I'm going to demand the number of resources I need, number of services I need. So it is very cost effective, first of all. Secondly, it is global. So as I said, my web app, I want my web app to be highly available in specifically India. Like I have most of the customer which are belonging to India. So I'm gonna launch my own compute engine in India. So like I'm sitting in Pakistan in Karachi, so I do not have I cannot fly. So it's not like I'm gonna fly to India, then I'm gonna construct a building over there, then I'm gonna go and buy a laptop or whatever physical machine or server, and then I'm gonna deploy in that building. So it's not gonna happen like that. I'm gonna just say to Azure that I need a compute engine in India region, and it is going to give me a compute engine in India region. So everything is by default ready for you, ready to go. And thirdly, it's secure. It's very secure. Cloud services are very secure. Nobody can hack those services. Nobody can play with your web apps or whatever the business you're running. So it is very secure. The underlying infrastructure is highly scalable, and it is highly durable and attack free. So fourth point is reliable. You can have data backup, you can have disaster recovery and data replication. If unfortunately any disaster occurred in the data center, so normally these cloud servers usually have the backup of data in another compute engine. So I have two compute engine. I have my single application is being hosted on those two compute engine. So my data is being stored individually on those servers. So if one server goes down, the another server will respond back to the customer queries, and it will give the service to the customers. Third, and again scalable. It is very scalable. I can increase the scalability. Let's say I have a deal. I have a company, e-commerce company. I'm running Black Friday service. So normally in Black Friday we have lots of customer coming in, and they're going to buy so many things because we're providing a huge discount on different products. So for that day we need to be ready, because we will not have a usual traffic. We will have a lot of traffic. So we need to scalable our cloud compute engines. Scalability means like we have one compute engine, we would have another compute engine. So let's say I will say I need 5 more compute engines in order to scale up my application. So let's say when Black Friday sale is over, so what happens? Like I'm going to pay for those 5 servers. In fact, I'm not having that much traffic. No, that's not gonna happen. My server or my cloud will automatically scale down the scalability of that application. So it will automatically come back to only single compute engine. So it is not going to cost me that much money. So like in the remote past, we used to build a big house which contains a lot of servers. So when I have less customers, so those compute engines are useless. Those are not being used by any of my customers. And lastly, the underlying hardware and managed software is patched, upgraded, and replaced by the cloud provider. So you do not need to you do not need to care about the underlying hardware, because it is being repaired and replaced by the cloud service providers. So you do not need to care about that thing. All right. How many types of cloud computing do we have? Number one, SaaS, software as a service. For customers, it is mainly used by the customer. So what is SaaS? Basically, SaaS, Salesforce, Gmail, and Office 365 is an outstanding example of software as a service. So let's say you have a Gmail. That's also a cloud computing concept. You store number of messages on a cloud, because whenever you get back to Gmail, you see all the messages that you received a month ago or 2 months ago or 2 years ago. So if those messages are not being stored on cloud, then those will get removed with the passage of time. So Gmail and Office 365 is an outstanding example of software as a service. And as you can see, I'm running this PowerPoint slides also on the cloud. That's Office 365 cloud. So that's another example. And what is PaaS, platform as a service? It is mainly used by the developers. So it focuses on the deployment, management of your apps. The major example of this thing is if you have used Elastic Beanstalk of AWS. So Elastic Beanstalk is ready to go service. Like you have a web app ready, you make a zip file of that web app, and you come back to AWS and you deploy it over there. It is not gonna ask you any configuration. It is not gonna ask you to configure me or set any CI/CD trend. So it is automatically configure everything for you. So it's a service. We call it platform as a service. So it is ready to go service. You just pick up your web app and you just deploy it, and boom, it is live. And thirdly, IaaS, infrastructure as a service. It is mainly used by the admins. So if you guys know about EC2 engines, EC2 is mainly provided by AWS. EC2 engine is like a computer which is highly customizable. The Azure also provide these kind of compute engines which are highly customizable. So let's say you want your own security, you want your own protocols, you want your own TCP IP protocols. So you can define all the configurations from scratch. It's up to you. Whatever security layer you want to define, it's up to you. So that's infrastructure as a service. You design your whole infrastructure from scratch, and you use that infrastructure as a service. So that's why it is called this thing. And it is mainly used by the admins. Admin design the whole company infrastructure, and then the company services run in that infrastructure. So how many types of cloud are there? So basically there is a public cloud, secondly private cloud, hybrid cloud. Now, what is the difference between these clouds, and what are these clouds? Public cloud is basically so if I generalize between public cloud and private cloud, if I differentiate, then basically it is very cost effective, public cloud. And if I talk about private cloud, it is very expensive. Why? Question is why? Because in public cloud you do not have too much flexibility. You cannot configure every single thing. Like in terms of security, everything is provided by the cloud server. You cannot configure the security. You cannot change the security. So in public cloud, it is cost effective, but it is not customizable. But if we talk about private cloud, it is highly customizable. You can define your own security layers. You can define your own underlying hardware, underlying infrastructure. You can define everything from scratch. So that's why private cloud is a little bit expensive. So let me give you an example of private cloud. So let's say I run a Unilever company. I have thousands of employees. So I want any application by which they can communicate with each other. I don't want that application to be used by external user. I just want that this application should only be used by the employees of my company, so that they can report and they can talk with each other, they can tell their problems, they can convey their messages. So for that, I'm going to use private cloud, because private cloud tells me that this service should only run under these premises. It shouldn't provide its services outside of these premises. So in public cloud, this thing is not available there. In public cloud, your service will be available to every single user. So anyone can access it from outside. So that's the main difference also. And in terms of level of configuration, I have told you that private cloud is highly customizable. Public cloud is not customizable. And for public cloud, you do not need that a lot of technical knowledge. Like most of the people, most of the attendees among you would never have thought about Azure cloud computing, would never have heard about cloud computing, and some of them are very maybe very good at cloud computing, and they would have built web apps or mobile apps, and they would have deployed their web apps on cloud. So it's like you do not need technical knowledge if you are using public cloud, but if you want a highly customizable web app, that a highly customizable infrastructure, then you need technical knowledge, because you need coding skills as well for deploying for designing your whole infrastructure from scratch. So, and let's talk about hybrid cloud. hybrid cloud is a mixture of public cloud and private cloud. So let's say, as I explained you, like I run a Unilever company, and in Unilever company I have an application by which my customer or my employees can talk with each other. So let's say I want to record feedbacks of external customers. What will I do? I will shift towards hybrid cloud computing. So in hybrid cloud computing, I want to secure my application from external attacks, as well as I want to get feedbacks from external world as well, from outside world as well. So over there, I use hybrid computing. So it is basically the mixture of public cloud services and private cloud services. So I can customize my security up to some extent, and I can have most of the services already uh, get to go. I mean, you just pick up your web app and you're ready to deploy them, and you're ready to use those services. So let's say database services. So these are already ready to go services in cloud. So you can use those services. Private versus public cloud. So in terms of security concept, I have already explained you that public cloud is not that much secure, but private cloud is secure. But when I say public cloud is not that much secure, don't think that oh my God, I'm not going to deploy my service on public cloud. It is. I mean, I'm talking about enterprises like Facebook. Facebook is a huge giant tech company. For that company, they are not going to use a public cloud, or they're not going to use even private cloud. They mainly use hybrid cloud, in which they can I mean, scale up and scale down their services. So what is the total cost of ownership? If you talk about on-premises, what is on-premises and what is outside premises? On-premises mean I'm in this house, so I'm in my premises. So let's say I'm having my own physical machine. I'm having my own hardware. I'm setting up my own network layer. I'm setting up my own protocols. I'm hiring in IT personnel. I'm hiring maintenance engineer. I'm hiring different kind of engineers for handling that physical machine, that physical server. So the cost is very high. As you can see, the peak of this mountain, down peak of this mountain, it is very high. But if you are talking about cloud computing, you can see the down peak of Azure, it is very small. You just need implementation, because you want to implement your web app into the cloud. It will not get automatically implemented into the cloud. You need to implement that. And configuration, you need to configure your cloud as well, because how many compute engines you require, how many databases you require, how many space you require, how many storage you require. So that's configuration. And training, if you're deploying AI into your web app or into your mobile app, so for that you need training as well. You want to train your model, so that for that you need GPUs and different services as well. So all these things, I mean, only these things, these three services you need, and the cost is very less. Like 75% cost is reduced if you do not use on premises. Like if you do not own your own data center, and if you want to use Azure or any other cloud service provider, so the cost is very less. Capital versus operational expenditure. So as I explained in the last slide, like server cost, storage cost, network cost, backup and archive cost, disaster cost. Like if you run into fire, like you have a big data center, and suddenly it catches up the fire. What will you do? You will lose every single data of your customer. You will lose your customer. You will lose everything, and you will come to the road. and a part of that, if you talk about operational expenditure. So in operational expenditure, so if I talk about Azure cloud computing, so you just need licensing your software and customizing different features. Like I want to put copyrights on my software. I want to train my employees. Where I'm gonna spend my money? I'm gonna spend my money in training my employees for using cloud services, because in my company nobody knows about cloud services. I'm giving an example. So I'm going to train them so that they can use cloud services, they can utilize all these things. And thirdly, I'm going to pay for the cloud support, because if I run into some kind of trouble, I'm going to ask for the support from them. So I'm going to pay for that service as well. Billing is mostly based upon compute usage and storage usage. So normally the bill increases if you have multiple compute engines, and it decreases if you have less amount of compute engines. Same goes with the storage. If you have a ton of terabytes of storage, then it is gonna cost you a huge amount of money. But if you have very small storage, like 1 terabyte, 2 terabyte, or 4 terabyte, it's not gonna cost you that much amount of money. And that's the difference between capital expenditure and operational expenditure. Capital means physically you are setting up your own capital, you're separating your own capital for all the underlying hardware, and you want to buy your own server, you want to set up your own data center. So what are the cloud architecture terminologies? So first of all, there is a terminology we mostly use. It's high availability or availability. So what is availability? Availability is your ability to ensure a service remains available. I mean, I'm running my, let's say we built, me along with my team built a relational web application about 3 to 4 months ago, or 2 to 3 months ago. So we wanted our application to be highly available to the customers, or to the users who are going to use that application. So that's so we do not want that if some person from US or Germany come and visit our application, it should sounds like your service is not responding yet, 404 error. So we do not want that thing. For that, we need high availability. Scalability, your ability to grow rapidly or unimpeded. So let's say I have my application running on one compute engine. I want my application to be highly scalable, to be highly available. For high availability, I need high scalability as well. So I'm gonna increase my compute engines. So you can increase your compute engines horizontally and vertically as well. So what does that mean by horizontally? Horizontally mean increasing the number of compute engines, and vertically mean I'm increasing the compute capacity of that machine. So let's say I'm running my services on Core i5, but when I increase when I scale up my server, I'm gonna run my services, or I'm gonna run my application on Core i7. That's vertical scalability. And what is elasticity? Elasticity is about ability to shrink and grow to meet the demand. So it is like so like in scalability, you increase the number of compute engine, and in elasticity, you increase the compute power. So I increase hard drive, I increase the capacity of processor, like it can process multiple queries. Like before that, it was processing 1 million queries in second, but now when I make it more elastic, it is gonna process 1 billion queries in 1 second. What is fault tolerance? Fault tolerance is basically your ability to prevent a failure. So as I explained, if my database catches up a fire, so is it a fault tolerance? Like it got a fault. That was a fault that it got. It caught the fire. So I need to have a cooling mechanism inside my data center. So normally every data center does have this kind of mechanism in order to avoid fault tolerance. Disaster recovery, so your ability to recover from a failure. Let's say if unfortunately any incident happened, then can you recover your data that you lost in that incident? Yes, you can, because let's say your application was being hosted in India region as well as US region. So if you lost your data in India region, you would have your data in US region. The same copy of data will be available in US region. So you will again pick up that data and you will again host that data into India region. So it is also recoverable. High availability, and as I have explained all the underlying theory about high availability, so I'm not gonna dig much deeper into this high availability concept. So yes, I should tell you this Azure load balancer. What is load balancer? Load balancer allows you to evenly distribute your traffic among multiple servers. So let's say as I explained you, as I gave you example of Black Friday. So on Black Friday, I have hundreds of customers coming in 1 second. So I have normally one server that is getting those 100 of users in one, but it cannot process those 100 of users in 1 second. What I'm going to do, I'm going to scale up my application. So it is going to it is going to utilize more servers. It is going to scale up the servers. So as you can see in the screen, I have 3 servers. So let's say 100 customer comes, 45 customer will go down in AZ3, and 45 customers will go up in AZ2, and rest of the 10 remaining customers will go in AZ1. So that's called load balancer, Azure load balancer. It is balancing the load. So which server should go? I mean, which customer should go to which server? That's called load balancing. Uh, and thirdly, and now we're going to talk about high scalability. As I explained, scalability concept, like if it has 2 concepts: horizontal scaling and vertical scaling. As I told you, in horizontal scaling we call it scaling out. You add more servers of the same size. But if you are vertically scaling, you upgrade to a bigger server. What I mean by bigger server, like normally you're running your web app on Core i5, but now you will scale up in vertically. So you will have Core i7. You will run your application on Core i7 on multiple Core i7. So this is called vertical scaling. And high elasticity, your ability to automatically increase or decrease your capacity based on the current demand of traffic. So like you want to increase your memory, you want to increase your computing power. So that's come under the umbrella of high elasticity. So let's say, as I explained you, Core i7, Core i5 example, that's the same thing. That's the same phenomena occurring over here. So normally I had 16 GB RAM. Now I'm going to have 160 GB RAM. So that's elasticity. I'm increasing the memory capacity and computing power of my system. So again, it has both the concepts, scaling out and scaling in. Scaling out means add more servers of the same size, and scaling in means removing more servers of the same size. So same size means multiple Core i5s will get removed. Not like one server will be Core i5 and second server will be Core i7. So all the servers will have same computing power and same memory. Okay, and high durability. Durability, as I told you, your ability to recover from a disaster, to prevent the loss of data. So let's say, as I explained you, like, do you have? So there are four questions over here. If you can see the screen, do you have a backup? What does it mean by backup? As I said, I have 2 data centers. One data center is in India, and second data center is in America. So in US, if I lose data in India, I would have the backup of my data in America. So similarly, if my web application is very, very large and it has lots of customers, million of customers, I can host my web application in multiple regions, in multiple areas. So the chances of having backup is very, very high. So and the chances of disaster recovery is also very, very high. So they both are directly proportional. And how fast you can restore the backup? That's the question. If I talk about like in the first slide, I told you about dedicated servers. So in dedicated server, the speed of recovering the data was very, very slow. But now in cloud computing, you have multiple servers, you have multiple compute engines, so the speed of recovery is very high. And does your backup still work? Yes, because it is being hosted at different places. If you have come so far, then if you end up over here, you still got the basics of fundamentals, but basic of cloud fundamentals. You can leave here as well, but we are going to explore more concepts about cloud computing. We're going to dig more deeper into the concepts of cloud computing. Zafar, should we have a question Q&A session? All right, so we should have the Q&A session at the end. So let's explore more terminologies of cloud computing. So as I explained, dedicated server. Dedicated server is basically the server which used to run only one business idea or one business application. It cannot run multiple applications on a multiple server. It's a single server application. So it is a physical server which can run only one business idea. And it has underlying hosting operating system. As you can see the diagram, it has its own operating system. It has its own underlying networking layers. So you can not you can customize those layers as well. It is also highly customizable. Virtual machines. Virtual machines is like you have one physical machine, but you have multiple operating systems, or you can say multiple virtual machines. One operating system will contain multiple virtual machines, so you can run multiple applications or multiple business ideas in single physical machine. So that the concepts are being repeating again, as I explained in the first slide. So these are the things which I have explained in the first slide. So I'm not gonna talk deeper. I'm not gonna dig deeper into those concepts. One of the limitation of this thing is you're limited by your guest operating system. Like you can have only one operating system in your host, in your physical virtual machine. So either it can be a Windows or it can be a Linux. You cannot have multiple operating system in different virtual machines. So that's a limitation of virtual machines. Another concept is containers. Containers are more advanced and is a more advanced form of virtual machine. So because in containers you can have multiple different types of operating systems. So like in one container I want to run Windows. In second container I want to run Linux, and in third container I want to run uh, what do we run in Apple computers. So we can run that operating system in these three underlying operating systems. So that's the concept of container. What do we have in containers? We have Docker, we have Kubernetes. But if you are running multiple containers together, then for managing those multiple containers together, you need Docker orchestration. That's a service. That's a kind of service or tool by which you can control or manage multiple containers. So don't worry if you don't know much about Docker and these kind of terminologies which I'm using right now. If you are getting it 50%, that's perfectly okay. Because later on you will explore these things, you will deploy your applications by using Docker container, and then you will come across, then you will know what is basically a Docker container. You can maximum the utilization of availability of capacity, which is more cost effective. Your containers share the same underlying operating system, so containers are more efficient than multiple virtual machines. Multiple apps can run side by side without being limited to the same operating system requirements and will not cause conflict during resource sharing. So normally in virtual machines you can have a conflict, like you have one physical machine and you are sharing. So let me give you an example of Wi-Fi. So you have one Wi-Fi in your home, and you have 10 users. So one of your user of the Wi-Fi is utilizing more bandwidth than the other 9, than rest of the users. So the rest of the 9 users are going to catch or get less bandwidth than the other users. So that's a main disadvantage of virtual machines. But in containers, you overcome this kind of disadvantage. Every container is going to utilize equal resources. So that's the last point. Functions are like programming languages. If you are good at programming languages like Python and C language and C++, you must have heard about functions. You must have done functional programming. So functions are like uh, encapsulating huge chunk of code into one line of code. So that's the basic that's the basic idea of functions. So you cover a huge chunk of code into just one line of code, and that we call functions, and you can call those functions in any application. And there is a concept of serverless computing. What is serverless computing? Serverless computing is basically cloud computing is basically an idea of serverless computing, because you do not need to go to any other platform. Let's say in Relief Me, we did not build any web API. Like if normally in the past, for storing our data or storing our images, let's say we have a social media web app, we want to store our customer images. So we're gonna buy data. We're gonna buy storage mechanism for that thing. So from any other hosting provider. So in cloud computing, everything is inside single cloud provider. Everything is provided by single vendor. You do not need to go to different vendors. So that's the concept of serverless computing. You get everything at a single shop. You do not need to go to multiple shops for buying different kind of services or build different kind of products. So your infrastructure can be region wise, it can be geographic wise, it can be country wise, it can be uh, so let's say if you are in US and you want to host your web app in US, so you can specify the region as well. Like let's say you want to host your web app in the region of East. So it has, if you can see East US 1 and East US 2. What is the meaning of 2? 2 means in the East region we have 2 data centers. If there is 3, then that means there are 3 data centers in the East region of US. So you can use any data center. You can store the data in any of the data center, which is more closer to your customers. So as I explained, my customers are mainly in India. So I'm gonna have a compute engine instantiated in India, not in US, because in India, my cloud server is more closer to my customer, so there is less ping. Okay, so global infrastructure in each region is paired with another region. Like if you have multiple data centers, those data centers in one region are joined together with the help of cable wires, and those have very high bandwidth. So normally, like you get the answer of your queries in millionth of a second. So it's very fast. And availability zone. So as I explained, okay, as you can see the image, there's a dog lying inside the data center. So that's not a good idea because dog can spoil your data center. So never ever if you are going to build a data center, never ever take your dog to the data center. So basically, as I explained in this slide, so that's the availability zone, like 2, 1, 2 in the US East. This is availability zone 1. This is availability zone 2. Similarly, if we have East US 3, then that's the availability zone 3. So we have 3 data center. So that's what give that's what availability zone means. It's a physical location made up of one or more data center. So physical location is US East, and availability zone data center 1, data center 2, data center 3. So if power went out in warehouse, data is already hosted in the cloud. So what does it mean? That you're not going to lose your data, because normally that never happens. Like power never run out in data centers. Azure virtual machines. So in computing services, we have these services, as you can see: Azure virtual machines, Azure container instances, Azure Kubernetes, Azure service. There are ton of services provided by Azure. If I'm gonna dig deeper into those services, it is gonna take more than 5 hours, because there are a lot of services provided by Azure, and you cannot. No business owner is going to explore every service provided by Azure. They just use what they demand. So they just pay for what they demand. They do not use, like, let's say if I'm using Docker, I'm not going to use Kubernetes, because Docker and Kubernetes are almost same. So so that's what I mean by all these things. And again, Azure Functions, Azure Service Fabric, that's a distributed system platform run in Azure or on premises. Like that's a type of compute engine, Azure Service Fabric. Azure Virtual Machine, that's also different types of virtual machines that you can own for running your web applications. So in one virtual machine, you're going to run your one web application. In second virtual machine, you can run your second web application. And what is Azure? So in storage services, you can see multiple storage services. Again, I'm gonna say you're not gonna use those all the storage services, because if I'm storing the images of my users, I'm gonna just use one service from these ton of services. Like say I'm gonna use first service, Azure Blob Storage. So I'm going to store, as you can see, that by definition, it stores very large files and large amount of unstructured files. So unstructured files are basically images and videos, like these kind of files are called unstructured files. And secondly, we have Azure Disk Storage, Azure File Storage. These are different types of storage with different amount of bandwidth availability and different amount of it cost. They all cost a little bit. Their cost varies little bit. And databases services, again, we have so many database services: Azure Cosmos DB, Azure SQL database, Azure database for MySQL, SQL Server on virtual machines, and Azure table storage. So that these are different types of database services. You can utilize any single of them. So if I'm not gonna dig deeper, I'm not gonna explain what is database. Later on, if you need explanation for that, you can go to the internet and check out there. Zero notification up. Okay, so application integration services. I mean, so that's like CI/CD. If you know about continuous integration and continuous delivery, so it's very similar to that thing. I mean, how you're gonna integrate your application or your service with the cloud. So there are different APIs provided by Azure. You can use any API, like a storing mechanism, like a storage. Like if I want to store my unstructured data in the databases, for that I need API. Azure is going to give me an API. On that API, I'm going to send a request, and with that request, I'm going to send the user data, and Azure is going to store that data. So that URL is provided by Azure. What is that URL? That URL is Azure API service. So again, I'm not going to explain that thing in great detail, because it's going to take more than 2-3 hours. So again, there are different application integration services you can see, and you can study about them more on the internet if you are really willing to study. Azure DevOps services. What are the DevOps services? Like there are different DevOps services, Azure pipelines. So like first of all, we hosted our Relief Me application on Azure. So like you push your code to GitHub, and then you connect your GitHub with Azure. So what happens when you update your web application? It automatically update your server as well. So when you pushes the updated code into the GitHub, the cloud automatically picks up that update and automatically adjusts the update in your web app. So you do not need to go into the cloud, and you do not need to configure everything from scratch. And so that's the underlying idea, that's the underlying concept. So that's a pipeline you set. So CI/CD is like continuous integration and continuous development. So normally in the past, we used to it used to consume a lot of time of the developer. So let's say if developer introduces a new button in the web app, so he used to go into he used to push that code into the GitHub, and then he used to go to the cloud, and then he used to again reconfigure everything regarding application, and then that update was available to the customers. But now normally there's a concept of CI and CD. You push your code, and it automatically get updated into your web app. So that's Azure pipeline. So similarly, we have different services like Azure Repos. It is very similar to GitHub. You can store your code into Azure Repos as well. If you're running out of space in GitHub, you can use Azure Repos as well. So it is very similar to GitHub. Azure Artifact, that's a different kind of. There are a ton of services. As I said, you can study them separately. And Azure Resource Manager, that's a if you want to build your infrastructure not by graphical user interface but by means of code, so you are going to use this Azure Resource Manager. As you can see the JSON, as you can see the code in the form of JSON, you're going to do the code in the form of JSON, and it is going to build infrastructure for you. So so normally I prefer a GUI, because I build things using Azure GUI. I do not prefer code, because even a small comma can cause you lots of time. So GUI is mostly preferable than the code. So for that you use Azure Resource Manager. You can do the same task by code and by using GUI as well. as we are moving towards the end, we have just one slide left. Cloud service model. I have explained all these concepts: on-premises, infrastructure, platform, software as a service. That's another slide. I have already explained this slide in the past, and that's the graphical user interface, or you can say all the services underlying or provided by Azure, including infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and serverless computing as well. So you can see there's a portal, there's a cloud service, there's a service fabric, there's a batch, and there are ton of services. For mobile and web application, you come to this section and you use this web apps. I'm gonna teach you later on how to deploy your web apps using this service, web app service. So that's a very fast way of deploying your web app onto the cloud. So after all these things, I hope so that you got the basic idea of cloud computing and the underlying concept of Azure cloud computing. So if you have any query right now, you can ask me. Now it's time to move towards the Q&A session. Now you have become cloud expert, not in terms of coding, but in terms of concept wise. Yeah, over to you, Zephyr.
Recording मिल सकती है.
Yes, you can have recording and you can have this presentation as well.
Thank you so much.
Okay, guys. So these were the basic fundamentals of Azure cloud computing. So this is just 10 hours. 10 hours. We will take 10 hours learn all these basic fundamentals of cloud computing, which we try to do in 1 hour. This was highly engaging. The recording will be available after as soon as we will end our uh, meeting. But till that, I am sharing you a link in the chat menu. Uh, Wait a second.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have shared you a link on chat. I will also share this link on our group chat, which is basically you can access all the theoretical concepts of Azure cloud computing currently based or through this link. This is Microsoft based notes, all handbooks, and you can also access Azure dashboard using this link which I have sent in the chat. So you should have you must go through with it. So you will be not have such overwhelming concept uh, with going through all this ton of examples. This get very troubling and hectic when you learn cloud computing at such recent time. So I hope you will go through with it and learn everything in a single day. Okay, Masood Jan Muhammad have some question. So Furkan, Masood Jan, please.
Yeah. Yeah. My question is for a small company, how much Microsoft charge per month
It depends
for
upon
the?
the number of computing resources you are using. So let's say if you are using, if you are having 1 terabyte or 2 terabyte of storage, and you are utilizing more than one container or one virtual machine, then it is going to cost you according to that. I mean, it is going to cost you according to the resources you're going to utilize.
I mean, for example, a small, travel agency. For example, let's
Uh,
say travel agency, it has, I think, 1,000 customers and some gigabytes of data and some mobile applications and websites. So how much Microsoft will charge approximately per month to that company
according to my knowledge, it's going to cost you around $300 to $500. Uh,
per month?
not per month. Per month it's going to cost you $200 maybe, or $100, because yeah, it's going to cost you $100 or $200 if you do not have, let's say you have 1,000 customer, so it's going to cost you $200 per month for storing the data and
Two hundred
providing
dollars
service.
per month.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
good.
I'm not sure about this thing. You have to test it yourself. I'm not definitely sure about this thing,
And all the
because
applications we have to develop ourselves. I mean, like mobile application and websites, development should
yeah,
be done by ourselves. All the
Yeah,
data
you
will
just
be kept there. Data will be kept there.
Yeah, you just need to build up your application, and you do not need to configure your cloud server, because like normally people configure the security and underlying hardware, and like they set up their like مجھے کتنا سرور مجھے کتنا ہارڈ ویئر چاہیے یا مجھے کس ٹائپ کا کتنا کمپیوٹر ریسورسز چاہیے. So they set up these kind of things. So you do not need to set up these kind of things. As I explained, in the web app section, you just go click the web app section and you just deploy a zip file of your code. So normally the integration of web app with the cloud is not that much easy. It takes a lot of time. It consumes a lot of time. But with Azure, it is very easy. Yeah. So any other question from anyone? You can unmute your mic and speak. All right, so let me read the messages. What is the difference between cloud architect and cloud engineer? All right, so the main difference between cloud architect and cloud engineer is, am I audible? All right. So main difference between cloud architect and cloud engineer is basically the cloud. As I explained, you can set up your cloud by using code or by using GUI. So you can set up your cloud services by both ways. So the cloud architect designed the infrastructure. He does not code or set up everything for you, but the cloud engineer does everything. He does code everything. He does build up that infrastructure. Cloud architect designed the infrastructure. Cloud engineer build up that infrastructure by doing code or by graphical user interface, whatever he chooses. So I guess I'm making sense.
It's more like an architect and civil engineer, just kind of that type of relationship.
What are the domains of cloud? What are domains of cloud computing for data scientists? Domains of cloud computing for data scientists? I didn't get it. What do you mean by that?
میرا کوشچن ہے کہ موبائل اپلیکیشن کے حوالے سے یا جیسے ویب سائٹ پہ تو ہم نے جا کے وہاں پہ زپ فائل بنا کے ڈپلائی کر دیا. موبائل اپلیکیشن کو گوگل پلے اسٹور یا ایپل کے اسٹور پر ہمیں ڈپلائی کرنا پڑتا ہے. تو اگر ہم نے وہاں پہ اگر کلاؤڈ میں جس طرح ہم ڈپلائی کرتے ہیں تو اس کا کیا سیٹ اپ ہوتا ہے؟ تھوڑا سا کنفیوژن ہے موبائل اپلیکیشن کے حوالے سے.
یار اس کے لیے کچھ ایسا ہوتا ہے کہ آپ جیسے آپ نے اپنی موبائل اپلیکیشن بنائی، اس کے اندر آپ نے اپنے یوزر کی پکچرز کو اسٹور کروایا ہوا ہے، یا آپ نے لیٹ سے آپ نے کوئی اے آئی کا ماڈل بنایا ہوا ہے جو کہ پریڈکٹ کر کے بتا رہے کہ اس بندے کی جی بی اے کیا ہے. آپ نے نمبر آف اس کے یوزر کے نمبرس ڈالے ہر سیمسٹر کے، اور وہ آپ کو جی پی اے کیلکولیٹ کر کے بتا دے گا، آٹومیٹکلی پریڈکٹ کر دے گا کہ اس بندے کی 3 سیمسٹر کی جی پی اے یہ تھی تو فائنل ایئر میں اس کی جی پی اے یہ آئے گی. فیوچر پریڈکشن بتاتا ہے نا مشین لرننگ. تو آپ نے وہ مشین لرننگ ڈپلوائے کرنا ہے اپنی موبائل اپلیکیشن میں. تو موبائل اپلیکیشن اب وہ مشین لرننگ کا کوڈ تو ٹینسر فلو میں ہوتا ہے یا پائتھن میں ہوتا ہے. اور نارملی اگر آپ موبائل اپلیکیشن بنا رہے ہو تو یا تو وہ جاوا پہ بناؤ گے یا نوڈ جے ایس پہ پوری فلٹر پہ بناؤ گے یا پھر ایک نیٹو پہ بناؤ گے. تو جب آپ پائتھن اور جاوا کو انٹیگریٹ کرنے جا رہے ہوتے ہیں نا، تو آپ ڈائریکٹلی انٹیگریٹ نہیں کرتے. یو میک این اے پی آئی، یو میک اے مائکرو سروس. آپ اس مائکرو سروسز کو کلاؤڈ پہ ڈپلوائے کرتے ہو. وہ کلاؤڈ آپ کو ایک یو آر ایل دیتا ہے، وہ آپ یو آر ایل کال کرتے ہو اپنی موبائل اپلیکیشن میں. تو اس یو آر ایل کے تھرو آپ اس سروس کو ایکسٹریکٹ کر اس سروس کو یوز کر رہے ہوتے ہو. لیٹ سے وہ مشین لرننگ ماڈل آپ نے اس یو آر ایل پہ اپنے نمبر بھیجے، وہ نمبر جائیں گے کلاؤڈ پہ. پلیز میوٹ یور مائک.
اچھا یہ جو ہے نا فرقان صاحب، یہ پوچھا تھا کہ ہاؤ مچ ڈاؤن ٹائم وی کین ایکسپیکٹ پر ڈے؟ ہاؤ مچ ڈاؤن ٹائم؟
Downtime per day, you cannot say that per day it is gonna give you a lot of downtime, but yeah, per year you can say that har saal maybe 1 minute or 2 minutes, because they take that time for repairing and for configuration and maintenance. In 1 year, they take 1 or 2 minutes. That's all. Nothing. more
अच्छा
than that.
लेटेंसी भी होती है क्योंकि बाद सर्वर जो होते हैं ना, जैसे अगर बहुत ज्यादा लोड आ गया तो फिर वो लेटेंसी होती है. जैसे मूडल वूडल है, बहुत ज्यादा लोड आ
बिल्कुल.
गया सारी दुनिया से, तो वो तकरीबन बहुत स्लो हो जाता है ना. अजूर भी स्लो
बिल्कुल.
हो जाता है.
बिल्कुल पिंग आने लग जाती है, लेटेंसी बढ़ जाती है. उसके लिए फिर वही जैसे मैंने बताया था ना, स्केलेबल. आप अपनी एप्लीकेशन स्केलेबल बनाते हो कि मेरे अभी मेरी एप्लीकेशन एक सर्वर पे रन हो रही है, तो मेरी एप्लीकेशन जब अगर इस तरह का कोई केस आ जाए कि जिसमें लेटेंसी बढ़ जाए, तो मेरी एप्लीकेशन 10 से 15 सर्वर पे शिफ्ट हो जाए. यानी 10 से 15 सर्वर से मेरी एप्लीकेशन रन हो रही होगी, तो मेरे 15 कंप्यूटर्स होंगे. तो 15 कंप्यूटर्स की आप कंप्यूटिंग पावर को मिलाएंगे तो ऑब्वियसली इट इज़ गोना अकोमोडेट मोर कस्टमर्स. तो लेटेंसी बिल्कुल रिड्यूस हो जाएगी फिर. तो नॉर्मली स्केल अप कर देते हो आप अपनी एप्लीकेशन को.
डॉकर और कुबरनेटिस में हमसे पूछना था कि आपने कहा था कि दोनों एक तरह से दोनों सेम ही है.
Yes.
तो और हम यूज दोनों का करते हैं.
दोनों का यूज़ करते हैं. इट डिपेंड्स अपॉन यू. आप या तो डॉकर यूज़ कर लें या आप क्यूबरनेटीज़ यूज़ कर लें. क्यूबरनेटीज़ यार बेसिकली क्यूबरनेटीज़ मैंने इतनी खास यूज़ नहीं करी, लेकिन एज फार एज माई नॉलेज इज कंसर्न क्यूबरनेटीज़ इज़ यूज टू मैनेज दोज कंटेनर्स. यानी आप डॉकर पे बनाओगे, अपने कंटेनर डॉकर में बनाया और आपने क्यूबरनेटीज़ को यूज़ करते हुए आपने उन कंटेनर्स को मैनेज किया. ये काम आप क्यूबरनेटीज़ के थ्रू भी कर सकते हो और ये काम आप डॉकर और ऑर्केस्ट्रेशन के थ्रू भी कर सकते हो. तो it depends upon your choice or preference. Did I make sense?
अच्छा AWS ज्यादा बेहतर है या अजूर?
अच्छा ये जी बिल्कुल चैट में भी आया ये सवाल. AWS बेहतर है या Azure, ये थोड़ा हार्ड क्वेश्चन है. दोनों की अपनी अपनी कह लें कि क्वालिटीज़ हैं. मोस्टली अकॉर्डिंग टू माई प्रेफरेंसेस I use both of the cloud service provider. अगर मुझे रैपिड इंटीग्रेशन चाहिए तो मैं AWS प्रेफर करता हूँ, या और अगर मुझे Azure प्रेफर करता हूँ, और अगर मुझे हाईली कस्टमाइजेशन चाहिए तो मैं AWS प्रेफर करता हूँ. यानी जैसे EC2 इंजन है AWS का, वो हाईली कस्टमाइजेबल है. उसमें आप सिक्योरिटी अपने हिसाब से एडजस्ट कर सकते हो, सब कुछ अपने हिसाब से एडजस्ट कर सकते हो. लेकिन अगर मुझे रैपिड डिप्लॉयमेंट चाहिए तो मैं Azure प्रीफर करूँगा रादर देन AWS. बिकॉज Azure के अंदर आप अगर एक दफ़ा अपना कोड गिटहब पे पुश कर दें तो वो ऑटोमेटिकली CI और CD जो कंटिन्यूस इंटीग्रेशन और कंटिन्यूस डेवलपमेंट की जो पाइपलाइन है वो आपके लिए ऑटोमेटिकली सेट कर देता है. आपको उसके लिए कोई कोड नहीं करना पड़ता. तो ये एक सबसे कमाल बात है Azure की. तो इट डिपेंड्स अपॉन योर, और प्राइसिंग भी कम है. AWS की प्राइसिंग थोड़ी हाई है और Azure की प्राइसिंग कम है बनिस्बत AWS के. AWS सर्विसेज बहुत ज़्यादा देते हैं Azure के बनिस्बत. AWS कंटेन्स लॉट्स ऑफ सर्विसेज. सिमिलरली Azure भी बहुत सारी सर्विसेज देता है, लेकिन Azure की ख़ास बात ये है कि वो प्राइसिंग में थोड़ा कम है बनिस्बत AWS के. What is difference between cloud computing and mobile computing? Mobile computing and cloud computing. That's a strange question. Mobile computing, शायद आप कहना चाह रहे हो कि मोबाइल में जो मोबाइल ऐप्स बनती हैं उसमें और क्लाउड कंप्यूटिंग में क्या डिफरेंस है. तो जैसे कि मैंने पहले भी किसी ने सवाल पूछा था कि edge computing. All right, so got it. Zephyr right now told me about edge computing. So in edge computing, अच्छा अगर आपने कोई इमेज रिकग्निशन या ऑब्जेक्ट डिटेक्शन का मॉडल बनाया, बेसिकली मेरी रेपो में पड़ा हुआ भी है, मैं आपको लिंक सेंड कर दूंगा इसी के अंदर, यू कैन टेस्ट इट. वो एज पे डिप्लॉय हुआ है. उसमें होता है क्या है कि आपने कोई मशीन लर्निंग मॉडल बनाया और वो मॉडल आप क्लाउड पे डिप्लॉय करने के बजाय आप चाहते हैं कि वो ऑफलाइन रन हो, तो उसके लिए आप मोबाइल के ऊपर उसको यूज़ करते हो. आप उसको एक इंटरमीडिएट इन फॉर्म में लाते हो उस कोड को, क्योंकि पाइथन तो आपको पता है जावा के साथ इंटीग्रेट नहीं हो सकता. तो उसको आप इंटरमीडिएट फॉर्म में लाते हो जो कि मशीन अंडरस्टैंडेबल कोड होता है. वो फिर आप उसको जावा के साथ इंटीग्रेट करते हो या फ्लटर, जो भी आप कोडिंग लैंग्वेज यूज़ कर रहे हो मोबाइल एप्लीकेशन बिल्डअप करने के लिए. देन यू इंटीग्रेट दैट मशीन लर्निंग मॉडल इनटू योर मोबाइल ऐप, और वो फिर बग़ैर इंटरनेट के आपके पास रन होता है. on mobile. So that is called edge computing. So सवाल edge computing और cloud computing के difference के दरमियान होना चाहिए बनिस्बत mobile computing और और cloud computing. Edge computing भी बहुत कमाल की चीज़ है. What are the essential things that must be followed before going to cloud computing platform? What are the essential things must be followed before going to cloud computing? All right, yeah. Before going to cloud platform, you must know the fundamentals, as I explained in today's webinar. You must have the knowledge about fundamentals, how things operate, how things work. Because if you do not know about Docker, if you do not know about Kubernetes, how are you going to scale up or scale down your service, or how are you going to deploy your service to the cloud? So for that, you must have theoretical knowledge as well as deployment knowledge as well. Yeah, but if you are going to for a job in different companies, you must know how to design an infrastructure as well. Can we say our data is secure at cloud since computer on a cloud is considered as a normal computer? Yes, you're right. Means why this is not scrolling down? Can you say our data is secure at a cloud since computer on a cloud is considered as a normal computer? Means I cannot read the whole comment. Can you please again write your message? Or let's see more. Yeah. Alright, so computer means Microsoft can see the information if we have credit card information of users. No, Microsoft is a huge organization. It's gonna do nothing of your credit card. It has millions of customers. It does not care about your credit card. If you put your credit card in Microsoft, they're not like us. They are a man of words, and they are man of actions as well. So if they say they are not going to charge you anything for that service, they are not going to charge you anything for that service. We can have millions of users. Explain system integration in cloud computing. System integrator in cloud computing. System integration. What do you mean by system integration? You mean any application system or any hardware system? What kind of system? All right. So let's say if we have any web app, and we want to integrate that web app with cloud. So as I said, if you are going to have a quick integration, for that there is a service. There is a service provided by Azure named Web App Corner. You click on that service, and you just make a zip file of your code or web app, and you pick that zip file and deploy over there, and it is gonna handle all the underlying processes by itself. That's one way of doing integration of your service with cloud, and there are other ways of doing integration as well. That's a long topic. Is having a background in software engineering or CS, whatever is essential for going to cloud computing? Yeah, for going to cloud computing, you do not need to have a CS background, but you must know how to do code. You must know. You should have a grip of programming. You should have a programming mindset. You should be able to do programming as well. So. If you are a very noob, you do not know anything about cloud, you can still shift your career towards cloud computing. But for that, you need to know the programming languages as well. Because what will you deploy on cloud if you do not know what to build? You will build first, then you will deploy. Linux is necessary to learn for cloud computing. Yes, it is necessary. Yes, definitely it is necessary. Linux is the core idea because in cloud computing you use bash command. You use command line or terminal for sending queries to the cloud and for fetching the resources or for performing any kind of workload. How can I best secure data for transportation to the cloud? secure data for transportation. How can I best secure data for transportation to the cloud? What do you mean by that? If you have very confidential data, if your business have very confidential data, you can go and purchase hybrid cloud. I won't say that go and purchase private cloud, but it is because it is very expensive. But if you go with hybrid cloud computing, that's a perfect and affordable thing, because then you can have your own privacy of data as well, and then you and uh, and some ready to go services as well. How can I best secure? We highly encourage to know Linux. Yeah.
Okay, so two of the people have asked about Azure certifications and what are the work of Azure certifications. First of all, I want to tell you guys कि HTC अभी बहुत जल्द Azure की मुख्तलिफ certifications introduce कर रहा है at discounted price. HTC has collaborated with Microsoft to provide as much as certifications to all over the nation, and the best part is कि वैसे certification usually 20,000 rupees cost करती है because the high amount of dollar and low worth of rupee, but आप easily उसको within 1,000 rupees में हासिल कर सकते हैं, within 1,000 or 2,000 rupees. Inshallah, within 1 or 2 months, HTC is going to announce that. Plus, then Tanvir asked what Azure certificate exams are recognizable and what taking to step of your learning from this workshop. Okay, so I highly request that you go for the maximum level. So you don't have to get certification for Azure Fundamentals or Azure Associate or Azure Expert. You can go ahead and get Azure Specialist. Why not? Because अगर आप 20,000 rupees या 2,000 rupees भी अगर आप खर्च करो तो spend on what it matters. तो आप उस certification में matter करो जो आपको ये बताएगी that you are a specialist in that discipline. We say spending on Azure fundamentals rather than Azure Associate, Azure Expert, or Azure Specialist is a big blend. So I will personally recommend you guys to, after attending 6 workshops, after attending some practical approaches in Azure Cloud Computing, you should look ahead towards specialization in Azure and be more practical. It's not just all about the certification exams. Be more practical. Deploy your all projects on cloud after activating your free Azure, and you just have a massive portfolio. And then that will be great. That's it.
All right, so we have another question. We discussed about databases at certain points. So I want to ask if the discipline of cloud computing and data science is interrelated in any way. What can be the career of prospects if anyone is a learner of both the field? Yeah, that's a perfect. You can say I'm a data scientist and I know about cloud computing as well. So if you are pursuing a career in machine learning and in cloud computing, both consecutively, that's a good idea, because for building your own venture for building your own product, you must know what is cloud computing. Because let's say मैं अक्सर औकार इवेंट्स में ये बताता हूँ कि मैंने अपनी एप्लीकेशन तो बना ली या मैंने एक प्रोडक्ट तो बना लिया, लेकिन मैं उसे लोगों तक या कस्टमर्स तक कैसे दिखाऊंगा? मैंने उसे कंप्यूटर पे रखने के लिए थोड़ी बनाया है, मैंने तो उसे कस्टमर्स को बेचने के लिए बनाया, मैंने तो उसे लोगों तक पहुँचाने के लिए बनाया है। वो कोई भी एप्लीकेशन हो, वो डेटा साइंस से रिलेटेड हो, वो जीपीए प्रेडिक्ट करती हो, वो आपका वेट प्रेडिक्ट करती हो, वो आपकी हार्ट प्रेडिक्ट करती हो, इट कैन बी एनी एप्लीकेशन। वो मैंने कस्टमर्स के लिए बनाई है, वो मैंने लोगों के लिए बनाई है। इसके लिए APIs बनती हैं। अगर आप डेटा साइंटिस्ट हैं और आप यू मस्ट हैव द नॉलेज ऑफ क्लाउड एज वेल, बिकॉज फिर वो जो आप एप्लीकेशन या वो जो आप API बनाएंगे, जो आप मशीन लर्निंग मॉडल बनाएंगे, उस मॉडल को कहीं ना कहीं डिप्लॉय होना पड़ेगा, उस मॉडल को एज अ सर्विस लोगों के सामने आना पड़ेगा, क्योंकि उस सर्विस का क्या फ़ायदा जो बिक ही ना सके? उस सर्विस का क्या फ़ायदा? ऐसी सर्विस जो लोग यूज़ ही ना करते। चले प्रॉफिट एंड नॉन प्रॉफिट तो दूर की बात, पहले आप उसे अपने कस्टमर्स तक तो पहुंचाओगे ना, कि वो कस्टमर्स आपके उसे यूज़ करें, आपको फीडबैक दें कि वो सर्विस कैसी है, या हाउ डिड यू मतलब हाउ वेल इट इज़ परफॉर्मिंग। तो डेटा साइंस और क्लाउड कंप्यूटिंग या दुनिया की कोई भी फील्ड, एवरीथिंग इज़ इंटर रिलेटेड। पहले क्या होता था? पहले होस्टिंग होती थी, अब पहले होस्टिंग सर्वर्स की होती थी, अब भी सर्वर्स की होती है, लेकिन अब नया कॉन्सेप्ट है क्लाउड का, जिसमें एक सर्वर के बजाय मल्टीपल सर्वर्स हैं। So I guess I'm making sense. Can we use Netlify Surge Firebase to deploy our application? Yes, you can use Firebase. I do not know about Surge and Netlify, but I know about Firebase. I've used Firebase in my applications. Firebase को आप use करके Firebase is also a cloud computing, is also a cloud service. अच्छा मैं आपको बता दूं Firebase भी एक तरह की API सर्विस प्रोवाइडर है. वो आपको API देता है डेटाबेस की. वो उस API पे आप रिक्वेस्ट सेंड करते हो और उस API पे जाके आपका डेटा स्टोर हो रहा होता है. वो API आपका डेटा उठाती है और वो लेके चली जाती है Firebase की क्लाउड पे. वो Firebase किधर होस्ट हो रहा है? वो Firebase एक सेल्फ एक क्लाउड पे होस्ट हो रहा है. तो होस्टिंग हमेशा किसी ना किसी क्लाउड पे हो रही होती है. Firebase एक कंपनी है, वो कंपनी किसी और कंपनी के सर्वर पे होस्ट हो रही है. So it is like that. So yeah, you should definitely go to Firebase. लेकिन what I prefer, like अगर आपको हाईली कस्टमाइजेशन चाहिए, एज आई टोल्ड यू अर्लियर, वहाँ तो Firebase लोग यूज़ इसलिए करते हैं क्योंकि उनको कस्टमाइजेशन नहीं चाहिए होती, उनको इतनी सिक्योरिटी नहीं चाहिए होती. वो जस्ट सिंपल चाहते हैं कि मुझे एक URL मिल जाए, मैं उस URL को इंटीग्रेट कर दूँ अपनी मोबाइल एप्लीकेशन में या वेब एप्लीकेशन में और मेरा सिस्टम चल जाए, बस मेरा बिजनेस चल जाए. लेकिन आप जब आप बड़े कस्टमाइजेशन की तरफ जाते हो ना, तो आप या तो EC2 इंजन क्लाउड आपको लेना ही पड़ता है, क्योंकि फिर आप अपना खुद का कंप्यूट इंजन लेते हो, उसके अंदर हर चीज़ अपने हिसाब से कस्टमाइज बनाते हो. So if you need highly customization, you need EC2 engine or you need Azure engine. But if you do not need customization, अगर आपको simple database service चाहिए, Firebase is a perfect platform. Azure and AWS are securely. Why we use something which is less famous? ये जवाब दिया शायद अली रज़ा ने. And I guess मेरे कहने का मतलब समझ में आ गया होगा.
Any further questions?
If somebody is data scientist over here or somebody is machine learning engineer, तो वो ये ना सोचे कि उसे क्लाउड की ज़रूरत नहीं पड़ेगी. It is highly needed in every aspect of life. चाहे वो मोबाइल इंजीनियर हो, क्लाउड इंजीनियर, डेटा इंजीनियर हो, डेटा एनालिस्ट हो, वो कुछ भी हो, अगर उसे अपना वेंचर रन करना है तो ही नीड्स क्लाउड नॉलेज एज वेल. अगर उसे क्लाउड कंप्यूटिंग क्लाउड इंजीनियर की जॉब करनी है, देन ही डज नॉट नीड टू नो एवरीथिंग. he does not need to become a jack of all, as I explained कि मुझे सब आता है वाली नींद. तो वो नहीं भी बने तो it's okay, you just need to do cloud computing. But if you are going for your own venture, then my GitHub link, all right, Zephyr is sharing with you. Kindly share my Flutter application link as well. उसमें edge computing के ऊपर एक application बनी हुई है. उसमें आप उससे अगर आप रन करें ना अपने Flutter का environment बना लेना अपने पास, तो you can see object detection एक application है. It is being running on edge. What is demand functionality in cloud computing? Demand function, यार ये तो मुझे भी नहीं पता. Demand functionality, be more specific. I mean, थोड़ा आसान अल्फाज से आओ. Maybe you're talking about, maybe you're talking about customer demands. It is about जैसे जैसे मेरी डिमांड बढ़ रही है सर्विस की, वैसे वैसे मेरी कंप्यूटिंग पावर बढ़ रही है. या जैसे जैसे मेरी एप्लीकेशन के ऊपर कस्टमर्स बढ़ते हैं, तो एक तरह से मेरी डिमांड बढ़ गई. मे बी इट इज़ लिंक, दिस कॉन्सेप्ट इज़ इंटरलिंक विद दैट कॉन्सेप्ट. तो मेरे नंबर ऑफ़ कंप्यूट इंजन्स बढ़ जाते हैं. नंबर ऑफ़ कंप्यूट इंजन्स से मुराद मैं बता चुका हूँ पहले क्या होते हैं. तो नंबर ऑफ़ कंप्यूट इंजन्स बढ़ जाते हैं. इट बिकम्स हाईली स्केलेबल. Sayyida Ariba Fayaz, did you get it? Any other question? You can open your you can open up your mic as well. You do not need to ask on chat. We have 5 more minutes, then we will be leaving. Yeah, we'll be leaving on 9:30. 7-8 minutes maybe. How to run your app, or I mean what, or ad. So for running the app, you need to install Flutter first of all. You need to configure Flutter environment. Otherwise, you cannot run the application. Flutter install kar lena.
There might be an APK file available in output folder, so you can just directly download that APK file into your mobile phone and just install it in your Android operating system, and you can experience edge computing right away. Okay, Zenthami, we will be sharing all details of Azure certifications on next workshop with a handy manual. So it will be free to go. You will get on next session.